I work at Columbia University in the Human Research Protection Office. I've been at Columbia for over 13 years, and I started in the IRB office back then. I kind of fell into the office needing a job out of college. I didn't have any research experience or any ethics experience. It was just basically a means to getting a paycheck. When I first started, databases were becoming more and more prevalent in offices. And there was no one in the office who really had any knowledge about how to use computers well. So it was a good transition for me to come in and lend that perspective and that assistance to the program. I never really knew that IRBs existed, so to learn how the whole process of how research occurred, how it started up, the whole process for the review, all that was new to me.
How do you explain what you do to other people?
The easiest answer is just that I'm in research administration. Often that'll just stop them because they don't know where to go with that. But as some people ask more and more questions, I try to explain that any research that involves people, such as investigational drugs or new devices that occur, or surveys that people are doing, all need to have some sort of ethical review, and my office provides that. The most important thing I think that I do is to try to be a facilitator, try to help people. So I work at Columbia where we have a lot of great researchers who are doing a lot of great and innovative things, but they need a little help on maybe on the regulation side or the paperwork side. That might not be their number one expertise. So I like being able to help them to troubleshoot problems or to help them kind of figure out the best way to approach something. They're the experts in what they do, and I like to think that I'm one of the experts in my office in what we do. So I think it's a good balance. I think that I've built up a rapport enough with the researchers that they know they can contact me and I'll give them an answer pretty quickly. I'm always available by phone or by email, and they usually tend to contact me directly if they have a question, as opposed to just calling the office and then trying to figure out the answer. So I do feel like I have a good relationship with them.
Sometimes private investigators feel that the IRB is the obstacle between them and doing their research. Do you encounter that attitude?
When I first started, yes. When I first started, the IRB office was the devil. Don't submit to them. They're a big obstacle. They're just there to try to stop my research. They don't know what they're doing. Over the years, as our program got better and better, I think that perception has changed. And now I think it's really becoming more that we're all partners in trying to get to the same goal.
So what specific changes do you think were made that has improved this?
Well, our program has changed entirely. We started with a 5-person office. No one really had any real IRB experience except for the director. The IRB chairs are more involved in the actual process of everything, signing letters, reviewing every protocol. I think now that as people's knowledge has expanded, the office has expanded as well. Combining all that has really helped make the process more efficient, more streamlined, as well as providing more just guided expertise in specific areas where people are becoming experts in specific areas.
What's one thing that you wish researchers knew about the IRB process?
I guess it's twofold. I wish that they could think the way that we think when they're preparing submissions, so they can kind of anticipate the questions that we're going to ask. Our questions for each protocol, we're not looking at something different for all the different protocols. We're looking for the same thing. And if they could understand that more or more clearly, they could then submit more clearer submissions or better submissions targeted towards what we look for. Well, the flip side would be if we could understand how researchers think, and that would definitely help as well. There's a lot of novel research that's occurring out there, but we don't know how it works. For example, genetics research, I don't consider myself even close to being an expert. We rely on them to explain their research to us. If maybe we had a better understanding of it up front, it would help us downstream in that we wouldn't cause so many delays because we don't understand what they're doing better. I think it's difficult when the research is evolving as rapidly as it does, and technology keeps getting more and more efficient. Technology is becoming more and more prevalent than it was, and the regulations were written 20, 30 years ago when it didn't address any of the things that we face on a daily basis. For example, biobanking, data sharing, genetic research, personalized medicine. None of these are in the regulations at all. So how do we all approach it? How do we deal with it? It's very difficult, I think, on a daily basis to figure out how to fit this new type of research into a regulation that wasn't really drafted for.
So how do you do that?
A lot of brainstorming, a lot of time trying to read up on different things, try to see what other people are doing to address these issues, and sometimes just a lot of frustration.
Then my next question was, what challenges do you see in the future? It sounds like this particular one is an ongoing challenge.
This is an ongoing challenge, and how it's going to be addressed by NIH, by OHRP, by other people at Primer, how the other institutions approach things. I think it's really going to become a more and more sharing of ideas to see who does it best and how other people can adapt that and make that process better. Primer is a great tool for getting together to share ideas and best practices. I think that it's not something that happens on a daily basis. I think the other great thing about Primer is it kind of brings everybody back to why we're really here and what we're doing on a daily basis as we're fighting with investigators or working on difficult protocols. I think sometimes we might get lost in what am I really doing and why am I doing it. And Primer, I think, it brings you back to address a perspective of I'm here to protect human subjects. I'm here to really advance research and what am I really trying to do in my daily job. I looked at Dr. Glantz's discussion and how he thought that consent forms were becoming more and more like terms of agreements, service agreements, and that the whole process is just a listing of everything that could possibly happen to you, good or bad. He said that he just reviewed a consent form that was 30 pages, which is just terrible. And he was becoming a proponent, it seemed like, for just audio consent or in-person video audio taping it. And I think that's great, except what if you don't know the questions that you're supposed to be asking, especially for a subject. So a lot of times the research subject, maybe they rely on their doctors to kind of lead them towards what they think might be the best solution for them. And if they don't know what to ask, then I think that process might be a little flawed. I agree that the consent form should not be the end-all and be-all, but we have to remember that the consent form is maybe just the most visible part, but it's really just part of the entire consent process. Alan Wertheimer gave a great example of being in a restaurant and the waitress gives you the specials of the day, but doesn't tell you what the prices are. And then you said, yeah, that sounds great. And then you get a bill for $50 and, is that really what I consented for? Maybe yes, maybe no. And I think that's a great example of maybe you don't know what the right question is, but if you just rely on an audio consent process, eventually someone's going to get burned. The consent process, I think, is difficult to gauge. Is it being done well? Do the individuals who are obtaining consent really know how to do that? It's a very hard thing to do. There's a research study that we're trying to do to teach people how to obtain consent. It involves people watching a video of someone obtaining consent and then asking them what they've learned from the video. Is it something that they practice in their daily consent process, or is it something new to them? Which is a neat tool that they have. The session yesterday about the consent by an app was a great idea. Trying to figure out how the best way to use it, knowing also that data security issues are becoming more prevalent. Is that really the way you want to go? But I think that it's a great mechanism to maybe elucidate the consent process. Instead of not having a 20-page consent form, you can use more visual tools or reminders that are built in. I think it's something that's going to have to be looked at, and it will become part of our society soon enough.
If you were going to give advice to somebody who was entering the field of IRB administration, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell them to try to find somebody they could use as a mentor to help them, to learn from, to learn practical advice from as well. I think sometimes people aren't always practical. They're very black and white, and this is not a black and white world. So I think that is my advice I would give.